When it comes to the Dunk High line, tying it up with the Ambush brand, it's been a heck of a roller coaster. First, there were the monster Chicago colorways that came and everybody was falling over themselves, dying to get a pair of those, and immediately they were called out as friends and family and nobody's getting their hands on them anytime soon. But you know, those friends and families tend to have a sort of habit of coming out, you know, 2 or 3 years later as a general release, so watch this space on that one. But it was a bit of a real high looking for those Chicago colorways, and they're real low, and then a Game Royal came along, and these guys look a lot like their Air Jordan 1 counterparts, the Chicagos and the Game Royals. And those Game Royals are kind of interesting. I'm wearing my Tokyo t-shirt again because I'm here in Tokyo, Japan, have been for 22 years shooting this daily content for you, not for 22 years daily content, living for 22 years in Japan, shooting daily content for something like 3 years. The thing with those Game Royals is that they didn't call them Game Royals, or did they? They called them something else, something like Royal Blue or Raw Deep Royal or something like that. But they came out here first. They came out in Japan about 2 weeks before everywhere else in the world. And then, you know, there's a general release in many other places across the globe for those amazing shoes. Lots of people interested in them for very, very good reasons. Some absolutely classic hits on that shoe. And now we're coming to this today, and it's sort of both of those stories that we're talking about, the whole sort of mirror image of Jordan 1s and dropping in Japan before anywhere else is totally gone as far as I know. I don't think I've ever seen a Jordan 1 look like this. Maybe there's been some sort of obscure release down the line that I haven't noticed, or has not been around for like the last 25 years or something. But Jordan 1's looking like this electric green is just not something that I've seen. And as far as I know, July 30th is the drop date for me, and it's the drop date for New You. Now I know it's a drop date here in Japan because it's already on the Sneakers app, and usually it used to be that it was always, but usually now that you can trust the Sneakers app is going to be the drop date. But I have noticed that a few drop dates do still get pushed back. I think the Electro Orange, is that what they were called? The Jordan 1 Highs, Electro Oranges, which haven't dropped quite yet. They were one of those ones that had their drop date pushed back even though they were already on the Sneakers app. But these guys already on the Sneakers app for July the 30th. As far as I can tell, that's not just about here in Japan, but it's also about around the world and a general release for everybody else. So it's the next installment in this tie-up between Ambush and the Dunk High line, and a great looking shoe it is too. But I think there's more to it than you know. I think most people out there look at this and they just look at the swooshes. And I'm here to tell you a couple of things. One is there's more on that swoosh than most people are taking for granted. I think most people are focused on one bit of the swoosh, but there's actually 3 bits of the swoosh to keep your eyes on. And then on top of that, there's another 3 places on the shoe that you need to know about as well. So it's not just about those swooshes, there's more to take in on this shoe, and that's what we're going to be doing today as we go through this. This is what we do at the Tokyo Bar 23 Sneaker channel. Is about a week, 10 days, 2 weeks before the drop date, give you a detailed look at the shoe, and then you can know for sure what you're getting into and whether or not you want to go for that W on the Sneakers app when it comes around July 30th for these ones. So let's focus in on that swoosh, and I'll tell you the 3 things that are worth looking out for on it. So hopefully the old green screen is keeping on going for me behind me here, and we can see that swoosh that we're talking about. Have you already guessed what the first thing is that I'm going to ask you guys about? And it's the single feature on the shoe that just about anybody interested in sneakers would tell you straight off the bat. Ambush, Dunk Highs, what we're talking about is the swoosh running out the back of the shoe, and hopefully I'll find a pretty good picture that shows you this on these atomic greens, that the swoosh is longer than the shoe itself, and rather than wrapping it around onto the heel and having it tapering towards the back of the heel all the way stitched to the upper, what they've done is when it gets to the back of the shoe, instead of curving around and following the curve of the shoe, they just have it drag out the back by 2 or 3 centimeters. And to be honest, Spock ears, that's where I always go with this. It just reminds me of Mr. Spock, I nearly said Dr. Spock, and Mr. Spock in the Star Trek franchise, and his ears, and they sort of point out the back and they have that kind of Spock feel about them. That's the obvious thing, but there's 2 lesser obvious things on the shoe, the swoosh, that are really important to note. Now we'll come back to the front end of the swoosh instead of focusing on that back end of the swoosh for point number 2. And this sometimes happens, I don't know if you can hear it, but my dog's digging away on the sofa here. And it's one of those things, I have such a short window to shoot in that I can't stop now, I can't give it up, I just have to put up with the racket the dogs are making. But anyway, back to that swoosh. Coming forward to the front end of the swoosh, there's two features on there that are worth knowing about. And this first of those two things, the second of three things on the swoosh, is it's almost like a rubberized swoosh. There's a real feel of 3D about it. It's like a rubberized sort of plate that's been stitched onto the shoe instead of it being a more fabric-y thing. And it's a really interesting effect. It's an effect I haven't really seen that often in swooshes, and it's kind of a neat detail, and it gives it much more of a pronounced 3D effect coming off of the upper instead of being sort of smooth and embedded in the upper. So that's kind of the second point about the swoosh, the pointy ears sticking out the back, and then the material it's made of. And then the third point is kind of like, I don't know how to put it, it's sort of the point of the swoosh. The thing about the swoosh is it's oversized. It's larger than a regular swoosh would be, especially on a dunk high. But the point about it, I don't know if it's a point on its own or if it's just because it's oversized and this thing happens. But what I'm getting to is the fact that that oversized swoosh runs into the lacing system, which very rarely happens on Nike shoes. And again, hopefully the green screen here will be holding up and you can actually see that the top end of the swoosh, instead of the pointy ears at the back that most people are focusing on, the top end of the swoosh runs into that lacing system just ever so slightly, which gives you an idea of its oversized appeal. So so that's kind of the things we're talking about, the details we're talking about in this shoe. Most people, like I said, are going to be focused right in on that signature feature, the pointy swooshes sticking out the back, but there's a little bit more in those swooshes, the materials, and also the oversized nature, which is most obvious in the way it runs into the lacing system. So that's the main feature, and we're going to park that because there's three more ambush features on these shoes that maybe people out there aren't paying attention to because of those signature features on the swoosh. So we're going to go high to low and look at those three different features. And the first place to go is the tongue. Now, I actually think this tongue is really important because it's got two things going on it that are unusual and you don't normally see. And the first is very obvious, is that it says ambush up there, and you do see that quite a lot these days. We did a shoe recently. It was the Undercover Basketball Association Dunk High, and up there on the tongue branding it had Undercover and Jun Takahashi, the designer's name as well. But on this shoe it just says ambush. It doesn't have anything more than the brand and the collaboration there, and it has a swoosh but nothing else, and that's kind of really paring it back more than most. I mean, already dunks often have a very simple pared back design in the branding up on the top of the tongues, but these guys have taken it a step further. Just a swoosh on its own, no Nike, nothing else up there, just a swoosh, and then the word ambush underneath. So it's a kind of detail again that might be lost in the mix because of the focus on those swooshes on the side. And then it's not too hard to go back from that and have a look at the insole, and this has been a sort of trend recently. Before, you know, it's a feature I sort of focus on when I'm talking about sneakers, is the insole, especially if it's a special insole like these ones are. But in most of the 3 years I've had this channel, we've been looking down from above into the insole, but recently you've been able to do this because they've been taking shots of the insoles taken out, and in the case of these guys, that atomic green colorway is repeated on the insoles, but with a huge ambush running through it and nothing else. And it kind of reminds me of the tongue branding and its simplicity. There's nothing much going on there, no extra Nikes or swooshes or anything. It's just a very solid, very clear, very simple font, black ambush on that atomic green insole. And so that's the second of three. We had the tongues and then the insoles and then the final detail, which I think a lot of people out there will already know what we're talking about. We're talking about the branding on the back, that kind of molded molded ambush on the back there that sort of pronounces itself off the back of the heel below those swooshes. And it's a detail that I think a lot of people will be paying attention to, even though those swooshes up above dominate the headlines. I think this ambush down below is also going to get enough sort of push that people are going to be able to see it and pick up on that, so you don't need me to tell you about it because most people already know about it. But it's a great feature, a real nice little detail. And since we're down that low, we might as well flip these guys upside down and have a look at the outsole just to finish off this video and kind of focus in on that atomic green colorway that runs throughout the entire shoe except for those black swooshes up above, and it finishes with that outsole front to back in atomic green. And then back out to look at the whole shoe, and hopefully the way I've described it to you today gives you an extra sort of dimension, more of a knowledge about the shoe, a better look at it, that you understand it more clearly, especially if you're thinking about going for a pair, and you can use this information to do just that. July 30th, like I said, now today we're shooting this video, I think is it July the 17th? It's Saturday, whatever Saturday is close to July 17th. I think it's the 17th today though. And think about these drop days. July 30th, the Olympics will already have started, and being here in Japan, that's a big talking point right now. So it'll be interesting to see how things are developing by the time these shoes have dropped. For now though, it's time for me just to wrap up another video and just finish this one for today. And there's only one thing to do, which is the same thing that I do at the end of every single video, which is thank you guys for checking out the content, remind you that I do this every single day, and because I do it every single day, that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.